Hello, Internet. It is I, the Malik Aaron, and welcome back to Box Office Recap. I am well aware that I am super duper late with this video. I've been putting it off for so long, for like more than halfway through January. But then today I was like, you know what? No more delays. I'm going to make this video, this set of videos, because this is a two-parter. This video you're watching now will be part one, where I go over all the winners, all the movies in 2022 I deem were successful, and then part two will be all the losers, all the movies I deem were unsuccessful. So we're starting with the positives, then we're gonna go to the negatives, and that's a good way to describe 2022 as a whole. It was very up and down, lots of highs and a whole lot of lows. But we'll get to the lows in the next video. But now we're going to talk about, the good stuff. And I'm not going to go over every movie in detail, because if I did, we'd be here for like 2 hours. And I'm not going to put you through that. And I am aware there's going to be some movies here that were more middling. They don't quite qualify as winners or losers. So I'll go over them, in detail. Well, not really much detail. I'll mention them. But we'll get to them when we get to them. So enough blabbing. Let's get to this. So January, skipping the first week, going straight to the second week with Scream, or Scream 5, the first hit of 2022. So Scream 5, man, Scream, that series has been through quite a bit. It's had a very interesting history, as I'm about to show you here. So you got the first Scream in 1996 from Wes Craven. Really, the first four were from Wes Craven. So the first Scream, classic. Absolute classic. Sleeper hit. Made a ton of money. Made over 100 million domestic. I believe it was the biggest slasher movie of all time until Halloween 2018. So it's pretty impressive. Then literally less than a year later, Scream 2 made about the same amount of money, same amount of acclaim. Things are going great. And then Scream 3 happened a couple years later. It fell off a little bit box office wise, but quality wise, a lot of people said it took a big dip. And then nothing for 11 years. A big 11-year gap until we get Scream 4, which, although was an improvement over Scream 3 critically, box office wise, the drop was downright catastrophic. I mean, look at that. Only made like, Alright, it only made like 38 million domestic. That's barely higher than Scream 3 and 2's opening weekends. That is terrible. And it's even worse when you think about ticket prices, like inflation, like actual ticket sales. It's awful. So then another 11 years pass. So a good 22 years passes since Scream 3. So now you have Scream, which I guess they didn't want to name it Scream 5. They're like, no, this is a new proper start for Scream. That's not a reboot. So they pulled a Halloween 2018. And it came out, and people were a little skeptical of it, but turned out to be a decent movie. I haven't seen it. The only Screams I've seen are 1 and 2. I haven't seen 3, 4, or 5. I should probably get to that before Scream 6 comes out. Yeah, Scream 5 managed to do way better than Scream 4. I mean, it made like 81 million domestic. I mean, sure, it's worse than the other Screams, like 1 through 3, but all this had to do was do better than Scream 4, and it definitely did that. So, yeah, and it was, again, the only January movie to actually make an impact, because that whole month was just dominated by Spider-Man No Way Home, and this was the one movie that was able to survive, or even like thrive through that. And now we have Scream 6 coming out in 2 months, so we'll see how that goes, especially since Sydney is not going to be in the series anymore due to, pay disputes and whatnot. Yeah, we'll see. But Scream 5, the first real hit of 2022. So that's good. Then we skip the rest of January, because why would I talk about that? Just skipping all those, we're going straight to February. Our next hit, Jackass Forever. Now, this wasn't like a major hit. I mean, yes, it did worse than all the other Jackass movies by quite a bit, especially in terms of ticket sales. But you gotta remember, like, the Jackass movies are pretty inexpensive, so it's not a huge deal, it's not a huge loss. And, you know, it was another number one for Paramount. Their first was Scream 5. And Paramount, you're going to be hearing them a lot throughout this video because they had a hell of a year. But yeah, Jackass Forever, considering like how long the Jackass movies have been going on for ever since like the show ended. I mean, the first one came out in 2002, and then you got 2006, and then 2010, then the spin-off Bad Grandpa in 2013, then 2022 you have Jackass Forever. Those are long wait times. So the fact that it made this much money at all is proof positive that the Jackass fan base is still alive. It's still there. And yeah, nothing really else to say, but Jackass Forever did pretty well, all things considered. And it didn't embarrass itself like Moonfall did. And believe me, we're going to talk about Moonfall in the next video. We're going to skip February 11th. Nothing here. Like, I guess with Marry Me and Death on the Nile, they didn't do terrible, but they didn't do necessarily good. So I'm going to skip those. Now for movies that actually did good. Dog and Uncharted. So Dog. This movie's success is a testament to Channing Tatum's drawing power. Because this whole movie, the whole premise, just revolves around Channing Tatum and a dog going on, a little journey. And that's it. That's all this movie had. Like, it wasn't like a big CGI spectacle or anything like that. And it still did really well. It turned out to be like really, really good counter programming to Uncharted, and helped that, Channing Tatum, like, he draws in the ladies. Like, he really does. And, there's two things women really like: Channing Tatum and dogs. So, and this movie had both, so it was a win-win-win for everybody. And yeah, Dog, it opened like 15 million, made like 61 million domestic, 75 million worldwide. It wasn't an expensive movie. It was pretty inexpensive. So yeah, did pretty well, and nothing else to say. Just a solid hit. Not the only hit Channing Tatum had in 2022. We'll get to the other one later. And now for the big movie that came out February 18th, Uncharted. I was convinced this movie was going to underperform because, well, sure, video game movies, they've gotten a lot better and they've been really successful in the last few years, but that stigma is still there. It's still there. When, at least definitely when it comes to quality. And with this, it just felt like it was kind of weird. Like, they waited way too late to make an Uncharted movie. They should have waited. They should have done it when like Uncharted 4 came out. You got like Tom Holland. A lot of people thought he was a really weird casting choice as Nathan Drake. It was in the middle of February. Like, it was expensive, so people were like, I don't know if this is gonna succeed. But it did. It made like almost 150 million domestic and 400 million worldwide. And that's crazy. It's one of the biggest video game adaptations of all time. I think in the States, it's like the second biggest. I'm sure it's the second biggest behind Sonic 2. So that's really impressive. That's very unexpected. But why did this happen? Why did this do so well? A lot of people like to say that Tom Holland, like the fact that this came out like 2 months after No Way Home, which was like the biggest thing ever when it came out, having this come out so soon led to like this halo effect in a way where everyone who saw No Way Home likely saw an Uncharted trailer play before No Way Home. So they looked at the Uncharted, like the trailers and advertisements, and like, oh, look at Spider-Man. And I imagine a lot of people went to see this movie because of Tom Holland, because of No Way Home. So that was smart scheduling by Sony there. And yeah, I guess also because it was just kind of like a almost a throwback in a way to like action movies. Like it wasn't ultra complicated. It was kind of like a movie you can just eat your popcorn, watch it, and be like, that was all right. And that was good enough because again, it made quite a bit of cash. So yeah, Uncharted, yeah. I believe it was the first movie of 2022 to make 100 million domestic. I'm sure it was this or the Batman. I think they both reached that milestone the same day. So yeah, but yeah, Uncharted definitely a hit, a certified hit right here. And we're gonna skip the rest of February. Now to March, the Batman. Here we go. Oh boy, so you probably know that 2021 was not a very good year to be Warner Brothers. Well, 2022 wasn't a very good year to be Warner Brothers either. But 2021 was oof. Boy, they had the HBO Max experiment. That did not work out very well. Lots of movies tanked. A lot of big, expensive movies tanked because of that. And also because some of the movies just weren't good. But this was the first to, move away from it. They're like, no more HBO Max experiment. This is theatrical only, the way it was meant to be. And, the fact that this was the first live action solo Batman movie since, The Dark Knight Rises. There was a lot of anticipation surrounding this, a lot of intrigue with like Robert Pattinson being cast as Batman and, and all that. But then the trailers came out and the movie looked really, really good. And then the movie hit, turned out to be very, very good. And then its box office was also very, very good. It was the first real, like, big money blockbuster. Well, I guess real big money blockbuster, besides Uncharted, to come out. Made like 134 million domestic. For context, that number is bigger than any. That's a bigger number than any 2021 Warner Brothers movie made domestically total. So this made more in 3 days than all of the 2021 Warner Brothers slate made total, which is just something. That's a real testament to this movie and it really shows you how bad 2021 was. But it made 369 million domestic, almost 800 million worldwide on a budget of like 200 something million. Now, when it comes to Batman movies, let's see. It didn't make as much as say Batman v. Well, should we count Batman v Superman? I don't know if I should. No, let's do actual Batman movies, like the Dark Knight trilogy. Sure, it didn't make as much as the Dark Knight or Dark Knight Rises, but it was the third best of all the Batman movies in existence, besides ignoring BVS. So, I mean, that's a positive sign. And it's gonna well, a sequel has been like confirmed, but because of what's going on with the whole DC films thing with like James Gunn, Peter Safran, it's hard to say where the Batman 2 lays into those plans, but I imagine they would want to continue. I mean, why wouldn't you want to continue this? Make you a lot of money. Like, come on. But yeah, the Batman, big hit for Warner Brothers. It was their by far and away the biggest hit of the year for them. They didn't have too many movies come out in 2022, but this was probably the best of the bunch by far and away in terms of box office. So yeah. And that was the Batman. That's the Batman. And then we skip to, I guess I can mention Jujutsu Kaisen Zero real quick. This was an example of anime movies doing really well. We saw that like really twice last year. And, I know Jujutsu Kaisen has like a fan base and whatnot, But obviously, predicting anime movies is very unpredictable. But this did pretty well. Made like open with like 18 million, made like over like 33 million, which I say is pretty darn good total for an anime movie. And literally the domestic tally was just gravy because it was already profitable thanks to its international run. So yeah, nice little hit here. I guess I might as well mention the BTS concert, which made like 6.8 million like one day, which is which is a pretty nice number. Definitely, definitely shows you how big K-pop is in the states. But yeah, we're gonna go through skip through that. Okay, what's next? I guess there's Triple R, which did quite well for like a Bollywood or Tollywood. I don't know what name they're using. For an international movie, there. Let's just say that an international movie. Definitely made a bit of an impact. I haven't seen this movie. I probably should, on all honesty, but yeah, but it still definitely made an impact. Now our next main movie we're talking about, The Lost City, our third Paramount movie. Now this movie, it didn't do amazing, but it still did quite solid at the end of the day. It made like 182 million worldwide on a budget of like 74 million. I say that's pretty good. Like 100 million domestic. There's Channing Tatum again, proof positive that he can bring in people. He is a draw, especially when he's like in the right role. And Sandra Bullock, sure, she's had some underperformers, but like when she delivers, she can deliver. I mean, she's had some hits, some serious hits. So having these two together, good idea. And it helped that this movie was, if it kind of felt like it was from a bygone era. Like you don't really see movies like this get made anymore, or at least not get made so frequently. But this movie managed to bring in a lot of that female demographic that was really missing. At the this and Dog were able to bring a lot of that female demographic that was really missing for throughout 2021. So that's a good thing. You gotta get certain audiences back. That way you can make more money. And yeah, not else to say. Nothing else to really say. But this was Paramount's third W of the year. Definitely not their last. And let's get to the next one. Well, not the next one for Paramount, but this. We have to talk about this. Easily one of the biggest success stories of the whole year. Everything, Everywhere, All at Once. This right here. Sure, it wasn't the highest grossing movie of 2022, but it was one of the most impressive performers of 2022. Because really, this movie should not have succeeded at all. I mean, this is a strange movie. It combines several different genres. It's weird, it's different, it's bizarre. It's unapologetically, it's very unapologetic in what it is. And with a movie like this, if it's like too quirky, if it's like too like, I guess, non-mainstream friendly, it could fail, but this didn't. It did not. It opened with 500,000, like 10 theaters, a 50K per theater average. They expanded to like 38 theaters, got like $1 million out of that. Then it went wide, got like 6 million. Then went wider, got another 6 million. And then just look at these drops. These drops are unheard of in the modern age. Like they are. Like it had so much momentum, so much of that organic word of mouth because of how unique and how special this movie is. Because this is my movie of the year, even more than the Batman, than Top Gun Maverick. This was my number one movie of 2022, just because of how inventive, like how just pure imagination right here. Like this is cinema. Like this really is cinema, in my opinion. And it ended up becoming A24's biggest movie of all time. Something I don't think anyone saw coming. Made like 70 million domestic, 100 million worldwide. So, yeah. Yeah, I mean this like domestically, this made about as much as Morbius. Keep in mind, Morbius was from Sony and it was based off of a Marvel character. And that movie was labeled a big old flop. But this the little movie that could managed to make as much as that. And keep in mind the budget wasn't as extreme. It was like 25 million, so it was able to be a hit. So yeah, everything everywhere all at once deserved its success. Glad it did well. Very happy for it. Deserves it. So yeah, and probably definitely the biggest limited to wide release we've had like throughout 2022. This was the cream of the crop right here. So moving on to April, we're ignoring Morbius. Sonic 2. All right. Sonic 2. The story behind the Sonic the Hedgehog movies is so fascinating. Like with the first one, the way it was going, it was headed straight towards disaster. We all remember that trailer. We were all there for it. I know I was there for it. It was a day where the internet came together and said, "This is trash. This is awful." And a lot of people naturally assumed that the studio would be like, "Nah, whatever. Y'all just haters. We're gonna go through with this anyway," which is what happens like 99% of the time. But something amazing happened. The studio actually listened to criticism. They actually looked at this and said, "Oh shit, we messed up. We need to fix this." And so they delayed the movie, redesigned Sonic. Then they had a new ad campaign. It was much, 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 much more positively received. And as a result, the first movie, gotta go find it here. There it is. First movie really made a nice amount of money. Up like $58 million, which was the biggest ever for a video game adaptation at the time. Made 146 million domestic, again biggest for a video game adaptation at the time. Made over 300 million worldwide. Could have made more, but COVID prevented that from happening. But made a lot of money at the end of the day, justifying a sequel. And we would get that sequel last year. With Sonic 2, the good word of mouth from the first movie combined with, adding characters from the games, crucial characters like Tails and Knuckles, led to a lot of, anticipation, a lot of hype. And boy, that all that led to this movie doing way better than its predecessor. It opened with $72 million, and 190 million domestic total, which is the new number one for video game movies in the States, and made 400 million at the box office. So, yeah, this is definitely an example of a sequel, gone right. I mean, everything went right here. I mean, critically, it was well received. Audiences love these movies. Like, they really do. Like, fans were enthusiastic. Fans like these movies. You know, and I believe this good word of mouth is going to continue to the third movie, which is going to have Shadow, my boy Shadow. I'm very much looking forward to that because he was like the big post credit scene of this, and I was so hyped to see him. I can't even tell you how giddy I was just seeing him. So yeah, Sonic 2, I say it deserves its success. Paramount, like this could have gone so differently. Sonic could have been a one and done movie. It would have been a failure. Everyone would have laughed at it and that would have been it. But no, Paramount made the right call and that crucial decision of changing Sonic's design and pushing the movie back to do it led to them getting a brand new franchise that's making them some cash. So, yeah, Paramount making definitely made a smart choice. Not the only smart choice they've made last year, but Sonic 2, glad it was successful. Can't wait for the third movie. Okay, so we're skipping past mid April. Okay, what's next? Okay, the bad guys. Let's talk about this. So the bad guys from DreamWorks. Now DreamWorks, they've had a very rocky history. They've had tons of success. We'll say Shrek, Kung Fu Panda, Madagascar, How to Train Your Dragon, all making money. But they also had infamous bombs like Rise of the Guardians and Turbo and Mr. Peabody and Sherman, Penguins in Madagascar. Those movies nearly tanking the studio. So yeah, things have been very topsy turvy. It's been very unstable. But this turned out to be one of their bigger hits of recent memory, and definitely one of their better movies of recent memory. Because although this movie it had a bit of an underwhelming start, I mean not a terrible start, but it could have done a little better. It had very good legs, and it almost made 100 million domestic. It made like 250 million worldwide on a budget. I believe I don't think it was like 70, more like 90 million, but it made enough to not be labeled a flop. And the movie, had good, really good word of mouth. I mean, I saw it on Peacock, and yeah, the movie was really good. I'm just like, man, like DreamWorks, are they back? Are they back to making like really good movies? I mean, I know their quality can be kind of like most of their movies can be labeled as good, and that's it. They never go much higher than good. But this went a bit higher than good, and it's not the only DreamWorks movie that went higher than good. We'll talk about that way later in the video. But yeah, the bad guys definitely not a major hit, but a nice little hit for DreamWorks. So, and I'm glad it did well. So, okay. So we're done with that. Moving on to May. Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, or Doctor Strange 2. This was an interesting movie. It was a sequel to Doctor Strange, but also a follow up to No Way Home, but also an epilogue to WandaVision. It did a lot at once. And it helped that it came out right after No Way Home, because this definitely benefited from that movie, because it made like 950 million worldwide, 411 million domestic, had the biggest opening weekend of 2022, biggest opening day too. So that's good. It stings that it didn't make $1 billion, but you know what? It got close enough. So I don't think Disney's gonna complain too much about this. And when it comes to its quality, it was a good movie. Not great, but I thought it was fine. Some people didn't think it was fine, but I thought it was okay. And yeah, it was the biggest movie of the year for the MCU, at least worldwide it was. So can't really call that a loser. So yeah. Yeah, but Doctor Strange 2 did pretty good at the end of the day. But now, the big one, the real big one, you know what it is. Top Gun Maverick. Yup. Mm-hmm. I've talked about this movie quite a lot because its performance has been insane, or was insane. So it was mind-boggling. I mean, Top Gun came out in 1986. It was labeled as like an 80s classic. And the sequel, it took so long to get here. Like from the development stage, like when the movie was actually like, okay, we're doing this, we're filming this, this is gonna come out in 2020. And then it didn't. It got delayed a whole lot of times before it eventually came out in May 2022. I remember reading that there were a lot of offers for other like streaming services to like buy the rights for the movie, but Paramount didn't want to do it. Really, Tom Cruise was dead set against that. He wanted this movie to be theatrical only, so Paramount were like, okay, we are going to make this theatrical. It doesn't matter how many times we delay it, we will make it theatrical. And that was the best decision ever because this became the biggest hit of the year domestically for now, depending on what happens with Avatar The Way of Water. But it's the second biggest worldwide. But it made almost $1.5 billion. For comparison's sake, Tom Cruise's biggest movie before this worldwide was blah, 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 I gotta find it. was Mission Impossible Fallout, which ironically was his last movie before, Top Gun Maverick. So yeah, the fact that this made nearly double that is bonkers. Real bonkers. His first $1 billion hit. Crazy. But why, and like it's how it did, like throughout its run, is just unbelievable. Opened with like 126 million. It broke the Memorial Day record that was held for like what, 15 years by Pirates 3. And then its second weekend was crazy for like 29%, which for a big movie like this on a post-holiday weekend is madness. Had the, I believe, the smallest drop ever for a 100 million plus opener, beating Shrek 2's record. And then even the Face of Jurassic World Dominion had held strong. And then just look at this. Look at it, was in the double digits till like late July. Like it didn't fall like over 50% until like way in October. And it even regained the number one position like in the very early September. So like this does not happen in the modern age. It never happens. Usually in movies, they do well and then they fall and fall and fall and fall until they're out of theaters. But this just continued to thrive for weeks. And it was a sight to behold. And it's the fifth biggest movie of all time domestically. I mean, like wow, it just makes you speechless. And it was definitely, I'd say, easily the biggest success story of 2022. Because sure, there was Avatar 2 that made more than this, but a lot of people expected it to make money. I don't think anyone was expecting this to make $1 billion+. I know I wasn't. I thought it would do well. No one, not even me, could expect this. So it definitely deserved it, though. It's a fantastic movie. And it's definitely better than the original in a lot of ways. So, yeah, glad it did well. It definitely earned its success. It earned every dollar it made. So, congrats, Paramount. Congrats, Tom Cruise. You earned this. You earned this big fat W. So, and that's it for May. So, June. Where is it? Here it is. Jurassic World Dominion. All right. One of the few. There's only like, what, three? Yeah, $3 billion movies this year. This was number 2. Now, sure, when compared to the other Jurassic World movies, it did fall off a bit. Quite a bit. I mean, Jurassic World came out in 2015, made like 1.6 billion. Fallen Kingdom made 1.3. This made a little over $1 billion. So it doesn't look great, but considering the fact that Fallen Kingdom was hot garbage, I'm amazed it didn't do worse. I really was. I thought for sure like Fallen Kingdom's like really bad reputation would do some damage, some real damage to Dominion, but that didn't really happen. And it still like did well, I guess in terms of raw dollars, not in ticket sales, but in raw dollars, it did quite a bit better than I guess like Lost World and Jurassic Park 3. It avoided Jurassic Park 3 situation, kinda. Because it wasn't labeled a disappointment. Because it made $1 billion. It's really hard to call $1 billion movie a disappointment. And it was one of the biggest hits of the year, so like, I mean, I know a lot of people really, really don't like this movie. I was expecting to hate it. I ended up being like, that was watchable. um and but yeah, like $1 billion, can't call that a loser. So yeah, it made money. It was easily the biggest hit of June by far and away. It wasn't even close. So yeah, nothing else to say about that. Skipping Lightyear for obvious reasons. Now to the end of June, we had 2 strong hits right here. First was The Black Phone. This movie right here. ugh, like I was looking forward to this. I thought it looked really interesting from the trailers, even though the trailer did look very spoilery. But the trailers were very effective. It looked like a well, it didn't. It's hard to say. It looked good from the trailers, and so I saw it, and turned out the movie was very very good. It was a simple but very effective movie. Definitely like maybe my favorite horror movie of 2022 next to Smile. So yeah, but Black Phone really well. I don't know if I'd say it overperformed significantly. I thought it had hit potential more than most people, and it was in fact a hit. It made like 23 million opening weekend. Had really strong legs and made like 90 million domestic, 161 million worldwide. It was a very inexpensive movie. And keep in mind, this opened like at number four. So a movie making this type of money being number four, that's great. That's fantastic. That's what you need. You need depth. That's one thing the box office has been lacking a lot is the depth. You need like a bunch of movies doing well at once. That's how the box office succeeds. That's how things that's how things should be. And yeah, it was able to do really well, and I'm glad it did. It deserved it. So, Black Phone, you earned your W. Next up is Elvis, which came out the same weekend. Now, Elvis, this was a big test because the older audience, that older demographic, like they were like not there at all last in 2021. They just weren't watching anything. It was mainly us young people, us 18 to 24-year-old like males. That was the big money demographic. 18 to 34-year-old males. That was the big money demographic for a long while. But this was able to bring in that older audience, and as a result, did extremely well. Made 31 million domestic, well, not 31 million opening weekend. Made 150 million domestic, 281 million worldwide. I believe this is Baz Luhrmann's his biggest hit ever in the States. Not worldwide, but in the States. And yeah, it's had very strong legs. Like it played out for quite a long time, which is good. And yeah, I haven't seen the movie, so I can't really comment on the quality. I've heard it's good, but yeah, I can't really comment on quality too much. But you know, hey, it brought back older audiences, which is a good thing. So yeah, definitely a W right here. Literally, the the last W Warner Brothers was gonna get in 2022. So yeah, yeah, two nice solid hits ending June. And then we go to July, and we got a big money hit again in the form of Minions: The Rise of Gru, or Minions 2. Now with this movie, I mean, I kind of expected to do well, but I don't know. I didn't. Well, I wasn't sure how well because it was clear there was some fatigue with the Despicable Me brand, with the Minions brand, because these little guys, these little Tic Tacs, have been everywhere to shove down people's throats via advertisements and putting them on every product, and all those Facebook memes is too much. So I thought there would be a dip, but there really wasn't. Not too much of a dip at least. Made like 369 million world domestic, 938 million worldwide. By far and away the biggest family movie of the year. It's not even close. Made like 107 million domestic and opening weekend. Had good legs, and yeah, big hit right here. And it spawned a big it was a big meme. I forgot what it was. It was like this trend where the Gentle Minions meme. There we go. Remember that? Where people were literally going to this movie in wearing suits to watch this. That was a real thing that happened. And I've heard like there was screenings where like people were throwing bananas at the screen. Like that sounds like I kind of wish I was there to experience that because it would have been something. But yeah, Minions 2, it's clear that Despicable Me brand still has gas in the tank. And yeah, nothing else really to say, but it was a very strong hit. And you've probably been noticing like there's been a lot of hits in like since like May, June, now July. Like summer for the most part, like for those 3 months, it was really strong. Like it felt like yes, this is the way it should be. This is what we need. And we have our last big money movie for a long time in the form of Thor Love and Thunder. Now, I am aware this made less than Ragnarok worldwide, even though it made more in the States. It grossed the least amount of money when it comes to the MCU movies of last year compared to Doctor Strange 2 and Black Panther 2. And I know a lot of people really don't like this movie. I thought it was definitely a step down from Ragnarok, that's for sure. But I mean, when you really look at the numbers, it's not as big of a disappointment as people are making it out to be. Honestly, I mean, let's look. I mean, the Thor movies have never been the biggest in the MCU. I mean, so many movies have surpassed them. So, like, I just did not understand that. But it made more than Ragnarok domestically by a little bit, not a lot, but a little bit. And yeah, that worldwide total was worse. But keep in mind, Ragnarok had China and Russia, two markets Love and Thunder did not have. So if you actually remove the tallies, like let's go to Ragnarok for comparison's sake. International, China consists of like 112 million, Russia 23 million. Yeah. So you subtract those from the total. I'm pretty sure Love and Thunder would have made more, technically. So I don't see how I can call this a disappointment at all. I mean, it definitely could have done better. If it was a better movie, it definitely would have made $1 billion. But I'm not gonna call it a loser because it was still one of the biggest hits of the whole year. So why would I call that refer to that as a loser? But yeah, while it could have made more money, it still made a lot of money at the end of the day. So yeah. But yeah, so and that was the last, big, huge hit we had until November. Because while we had hits, between Thor 4 and Black Panther 2, it was it was kind of a rough time, and we're about to enter that rough period. But there were still a lot of hits, though, some notable hits. One of them being where the Crawdads Sing. Now, this was another movie that really brought in that female audience. It really did, because no one was expecting much out of this. I definitely wasn't expecting much out of this. I mean, I thought it was the summer release date was kind of weird for the movie considering what it is. And I thought it would make, I don't know, 30, 40 million total. It made 90 million total, so I looked like a real goober. And opened with like 17 million, and its legs were really strong. Like summer had, boy, 2022 had movies with super long legs, didn't it? I mean, you had Everything Everywhere All at Once. You had Gun Maverick, Elvis, Black Phone. It was a good year for legs, and don't even get me started on like Smile and Puss in Boots 2. We'll get to those later. But yeah, it had like some serious longevity throughout the summer. And yeah, definitely a big hit. Only cost like 24 million, so yeah, it definitely made a profit. And it brought back a lot of that female audience that was missing for quite a long time. So yeah, it was kind of a sleeper hit on it. I guess I can label this as a sleeper hit. So yeah. did well, and that's good for the industry. So let's move on. Next up, we have Nope right here. Jordan Peele's third movie. Yes, it did quite a bit worse than Get Out and Us by like a noticeable amount, but for an original horror flick, still did really well. I mean, it made like over 100 million domestic. I believe it's one of the few R-rated movies to hit 100 million domestic. I believe it's like this, Bullet Train, and Smile, and that's it in the recent memory. So I say, and this is the highest of the bunch. So I say that's pretty good. Only cost like $68 million, so it probably made its money back. And I mean, I saw it. It was kind of weird, but not like a bad weird. It was really interesting though. I definitely don't regret watching it. So yeah, with Nope, still, although it could have made a little more money, I still call it a win. I still prefer to as a winner. So yeah, that was Nope. That was like the last, well, not the last, but like one of the last real, I guess, uh, what's the word? Last few bright spots of the box office for like a long time. Next, we have, and I don't know, DC League of Super Pets. That's more mid. I'm not going to talk about that. Bullet Train, I will talk about in August. Literally, like, this was the last gasp of summer right here. I mean, the movie looked great from the trailers, and I knew I was going to watch it like Thursday night when it came out. And, I was really hoping it would do well, but its opening weekend was like 30 million. I was like, ugh, but it held on and made 100 million domestic, made 238 million worldwide. I was like, okay, good, it's a hit. Woo. And also the movie I thought was quite good. So, yeah, I mean, it was like, yeah. Yeah, like after that first weekend, its second weekend was also kind of iffy, but after that, it held on enough to reach 100 million. And this was by far and away the biggest hit of August. Not even like no competition in sight when it comes to that number one placement. So yeah, I'm glad it did well. I'm glad it made money. And then you got the rest of August. Skipping this weekend. Well, Bodies did okay. But I don't think I'm going to mention that. Dragon Ball Superhero. This did pretty well, I say. Our second big anime movie of the year, opened with like 21 million. Sure, it fell off like a stone. After that, it had a drop off of like what, 78%, which is one of the worst I've ever seen. But really, it didn't matter because it's not like the movie was expensive anyway. Yeah, that opening weekend proves without a shadow of a doubt that anime movies can draw, they can make money, especially if they're based off well-known IPs. So, yeah, this was like the second best performer of August, which should really tell you something. um, but yeah, and then the rest of August we're skipping all of this, and then we're skipping the beginning of September too. Next we okay, Barbarian. Let's talk about this. I thought this movie looked really lame from the trailers. The trailers did not sell this movie very well, and I was convinced it was like thrown here just for Disney to just like dump it to be like, ugh, we don't know what to do with this. But something weird happened. Like Disney, like at the last minute, they started really, really pushing it, and I was like, what the heck? Where did this come from? And it turns out the movie, reviews were very strong, and I naturally assumed, even still, well, before the reviews came out, I was like, this, no way this is gonna hit double digits domestically, at least opening weekend it won't, and it did. 10.5 million, and it had really good legs to the point where it made 40 million domestic. Considering it's low budget, it's pretty good, and I had really strong legs too. So while it's not a major hit, it's definitely a nice little hit, a hit I didn't expect. So that's good. And it helped September be a whole lot, less depressing overall. Because September was a sad month, a really sad month. Then we got what else? The Woman King. That's more mid. As is Don't Worry Darling. Both were very mid. I wouldn't call them hits, but I wouldn't call them flops either. So they're mid. Definitely mid. And there was the Avatar re-release. It did well. Smile, where are you? There you are. Let's talk about you. Smile. The horror movie of 2022, at least in terms of box office. Or at least, yeah, box office, worldwide at least. Boy, like, this movie almost. This could turn out very differently because the initial plan was for it to go to Paramount Plus, to go straight to streaming, no theatrical. That was the plan. But Paramount, they did some test screenings and they went so well, they were like, wait, hold on. I think we got here. Let's make it theatrical. And let's really put the teaser trailer before Top Gun Maverick, which is what they did. And then they had a big old marketing campaign, big old viral campaign for the movie. And it came out, had good reviews, had a nice opening weekend of 22.6 million. And I thought, okay, it's going to end up like a 50, 60 million domestic. It'll do fine. It made 105 million domestic. And its second weekend only felt like 18%. And then after that, like 32%. And that was the same weekend Halloween Ends came out. Direct competition. And it managed to survive. Just like how Top Gun Maverick was able to survive against Jurassic World Dominion. And it just kept going until it eventually stopped when it eventually hit Paramount Plus. But it was strong. Like, it was kind of shocking. It was definitely one of the bigger success stories of 2022 because I never would have guessed this would have made more than Halloween Ends. I was like, no chance. And that's what happened. It did. It beat Halloween Ends by a large margin. And I think that's because the movie had really good word of mouth. I saw it. It's a very good movie. Very effective horror movie. And yeah, I could see why. And besides, like, although it came out the last day of September, it was really an October movie. Because, like, it made a majority of its money in October, so. But yeah, having this be, like, in October, the spooky month, or at least close enough to it, smart strategy. And it worked out beautifully. So, yeah, Smile. I say it definitely deserved its success. Glad it did well. And let's move on. October, this month was also kind of depressing. Well, there's Terrifier 2, which did pretty well considering what it was. So that was nice. Not going to talk about Lyle Crocodile. That's more mid, honestly. Halloween Ends is also mid. I mean, sure, it made money. But boy, it opened with like 40 million and it dropped to like, I think an 80% dip the next weekend and only made like 64 million domestic. Yeah, 64 million, like 100 million worldwide. Way worse than, well, slightly worse than Halloween Kills and way worse than 2018, which makes me think that they really should have just ended the series at 2018 and just not made those sequels. Because those Kills and Ends, those were a bad, making those was a bad decision. And it really bit them in the ass, I think. It just, and like the whole Halloween series just ended on a low note. So yeah, that's why I'm not going to label it as a winner or a loser, because again, it made money technically. Okay, what else? Ticket to Paradise. Sure, let's talk about that one. So Ticket to Paradise, I'd argue, was a much bigger success than Halloween Ends, because this was obviously going more towards the older crowd, the more female crowd, and it was counter programming against Black Adam, and it did very well at its job. Made like 16.5 million, made like 68 million domestic, had nice legs, very nice legs. Made like 172 million on a budget of 60 million, so can't call that a fail at all. And I'm pretty sure I'm positive this was more profitable than Black Adam was. Despite Black Adam being like the big blockbuster movie, this I argue was a much bigger hit in the grand scheme of things. So, yeah, Ticket to Paradise did well, did just solid. Did not much else to say about that. Then we're gonna skip the last weekend of October, move right on to November. One Piece Film Red, that domestic total, oof. I thought it would do a lot better, but granted, its domestic numbers were just gravy. But still, it could have done better. So that's why I'm not labeling it as a winner or a loser. Okay, Black Panther: Wakanda Forever. Let's talk about this. Okay, so this is an interesting case. Yes, it did way worse than the first movie. But did anyone expect this to match the first movie realistically? Because that first movie, the stars aligned for it, everything went right, and like to expect to match that or like duplicate that is absurd. That is trying to like get lighting in a bottle like for the second time. You can do it once, but doing it twice, that's a challenge, a real challenge. And it did do worse worldwide when compared to say Doctor Strange 2, although it did make more domestically. And when it comes to other MCU movies, this number isn't super great, but I mean domestically it made a 450 million world, which is nothing to sneeze at all. It's the second biggest of 2022. Actually third biggest, my bad. I keep forgetting Avatar 2 did better. Or at least I'm not sure if Avatar 2 beat it during 2022. I don't think it did. I'm not sure. But still, 450 million domestic, nothing to sneeze at all. Definitely, actually, one of the bigger MCU movies domestically. I'm about to show you, just for proof. No, I hit the wrong thing. Here we go. So you got Endgame, you got No Way Home, you got Black Panther, you got Infinity War, Avengers, Age of Ultron, and then Black Panther: Wakanda Forever. So it's number 7. So yeah, can't really call that a loser. It's hard to call that a loser, even though it definitely could have made $1 billion. But at the end of the day, it's definitely not a flop. I wouldn't call it a flop. And its performance overall, it did fine. It had okayish legs, but it was definitely a sequel where, well, it didn't even open as big as the first movie. It opened like a slightly worse, but it fell off harder, which is the case for most sequels. But yeah, overall, I say it did fine. Not amazing, but not terrible, but fine, but good enough to be labeled a winner in my book. So, yeah. Okay, let's move on. The Menu did better than I expected, but it did fine. The Chosen, that whole that thing did pretty well for what it was. Glass Onion, same thing. It was basically a 1 week paid preview of a Netflix movie in like 600 theaters, made like 15 million. I say that's good for what it is. And we're not even going to talk about the rest of the November movies because there's no point. Okay. Violent Night, nice solid hit. It managed to survive in that death spot known as post Thanksgiving weekend. And it was able to make nearly 50 million domestic. How much worldwide? 75 million worldwide on a budget of like, what, 20 something million? So nice little hit right there. Then next up, we got two more. Okay, there's two more movies. Avatar: The Way of Water, the last big money hit of 2022 and the biggest worldwide by far and away. So if Avatar 2 took a long time to come out, 13 years, and Obviously, expectations were very high because the original was the highest grossing movie of all time. Well, lost its spot to Endgame, then it got it back. So yeah, expectations were sky high for this. It was expected to be a big old hit. Its opening weekend, a lot of people were concerned about it. People were like, ugh, 134 million. It should have done better than that. A lot of people were expecting like it to reach like close to 200 million opening weekend. I wasn't. I definitely wasn't. But I knew this movie would have better legs. It just wasn't like the type of series where you make all your money in week one and you burn out immediately afterwards. Just like the first movie, I figured this would be more of a slow-ish burn. And that's kind of what it was. Because it fell off a bit over Christmas. Well, the next weekend because of Christmas Eve and like really bad snowstorms. But it was able to recover very fast. And it actually went up the next weekend like 6% to 67 million. And it made 45 million and made 32 million last weekend. So now it is up to $574 million domestically as we speak. And almost 2 billion worldwide. It will get to 2 billion this weekend. That's a guarantee. Sure, it's not as much as the first movie, but it's more than enough to justify Avatar 3, 4, and 5. Well, 3 was going to happen no matter what. But 4 and 5 are definitely going to be in the pipeline now. They're definitely going to exist because the whole thing was this: if this movie didn't break even, if it didn't make money, then 4 and 5 would have died, and it would just been we would have ended it with 3. But because this is going to hit 2 billion, which initially that was like the number that was like, oh, it need to hit 2 billion to break even, but James Cameron came out and was like, no, it didn't. I think he made like, he didn't say an exact number, but apparently that was the number he thought it would take for it to break even, but turned out it didn't need to make that much. But it's gonna hit it anyway, so who cares? It's gonna make that 2 billion mark, one of the few movies in history to do so. So yeah, sure, it didn't make as much as the first movie. It probably won't overall, unless it gets a re-release or something. But is definitely a W. Biggest hit of 2022 worldwide. It may or may not be the biggest domestically. We'll see. But yeah, definitely a big old W for James Cameron, who's literally the king of the box office. That's a fact that cannot be disputed. So, yeah. And then the last hit, a movie I didn't expect to talk about, but I now have to talk about it. Well, it's not The Whale. The Whale did pretty good for, you know, for what it is. Puss in Boots: The Last Wish. All right, let's talk about this. Now, Puss in Boots 2 came out 11 years after the first. Man, December 2022. That was the month of long-awaited sequels, wasn't it? You got 13 years of Avatar and 11 years of Puss in Boots. Like, Jesus. But anywho, Puss in Boots 2 was a sequel to Puss in Boots, which was a spin-off to Shrek. Shrek was like the cornerstone of DreamWorks. It was like their peak was like the first two Shrek. Really, Shrek 2 was their peak. Shrek really just caused them to explode in popularity. And then Shrek 2, still their biggest movie of all time. Then things went wrong with Shrek 3. And then that unfortunately hurt Shrek 4, which a lot of people believe is an underrated gem. Then you got Puss in Boots, which fell off a bit from the heights of Shrek, but still made a lot of money, like 500 plus million. But yeah, that 11-year gap, I was like, ugh, I don't think it's going to be in this movie's favor. And it didn't look, well, I didn't pay much attention to it before it came out. And its opening weekend was real weak, like 12 million, like, oof, like 18 million for the 5-day weekend. That's not good. I was thinking, oh boy, this is going to be a catatonic catastrophe. There we go. I took that from Bubsy 3D because I had the funny cat pun. But it was able to survive. It was able to save itself because it was able to find its audience afterwards, after its opening weekend. And it went up by like 35% the next weekend, only fell at 19% the next weekend. This past weekend went up like 7%. Like a lot of people are comparing these numbers to The Greatest Showman, which also had an awful start, but was able to find its audience, and they just kept coming and coming and coming just nonstop for weeks. And it feels like we're seeing a repeat here. And it made 100 million domestic, something I didn't expect to happen at all. And its legs have been insane, even compared to other movies I've talked about in this video. So, and it's showing no signs of stopping. And it may just reach the first movie's domestic total, which I didn't expect. I don't know about worldwide, it's a little ambitious. But the movie only cost like $90 million, so it won't take too much for it to break even. And, you know, I know they're working on Shrek 5. They directly teased Shrek 5 at the end of this movie right here. Like, they teased it, and they know that that demand is there for a Shrek 5. Like, my generation demands it to exist. So, the smart thing to do is to fast track Shrek 5. All right, after this, because this movie slapped real hard. It was way better than I ever thought it could be. I mean, it was like I only saw it because so many people were gushing about it, and that convinced me to see it. That good old societal peer pressure kicking in, and I watched it, and I was like, "This is damn good. Probably the best this series has done since Shrek 2. Definitely since Shrek 2." So, really glad I watched it. I highly recommend. Please watch Puss in Boots 2. Please. Please. It's a damn good movie. You need to see it. Definitely one of DreamWorks' better movies of like the past decade, I'd say. But I haven't watched a whole bunch of DreamWorks movies the last decade, so I can't really say for sure. But this is a really good movie that definitely deserves to be a winner. And it is a winner in my book. So, yeah. Glad it's doing well. Please see it. And I might as well mention how I thought about Avatar 2. It was good, albeit there's um a little too much nothingness, a little too much just a waste of time, where it just felt like the movie just went it like slow to a crawl, which is a lot of just what's the word I'm trying to think. Ugh. Just a lot of flashy imagery, like, ooh, look at the pretty colors, and I'm like, can we get back to the plot now? But I still thought it was fun. And I forgot to mention where is it? Gotta find it. Black Panther Wakanda Forever. I thought that was fine too. That was good. It's alright. And that's 2022, or at least that's the good side of 2022. Next video, we get to the losers, and that's gonna be fun. Real fun. So stay tuned for that video. But yeah, that's it. That's all. Make sure to subscribe, like this video, leave a comment, turn on notifications, share the whole drill. You want to check out more videos like this, got playlists on the homepage of all previous recap videos I've done this year. Well, not this year, for the past few years. You want to watch any of those, go right ahead. There's also, you know, there's the canceled series where I go over all the movies that were supposed to come out but didn't. I know I have to make one because Mathregan 2 or 2.0 got announced. And I was like, well, shoot, that's my next canceled episode right there. So stay tuned for that. If you want to watch any of the past cancel episodes I made on the channel, go right ahead, binge them all from beginning to now. Highly encourage it. Go do that. There's also box office predictions, where I predict box office for movies. I'm starting my 2023 predictions, but I've also done predictions for literally all these movies I talked about. So if you want to watch any of those prediction videos, go right ahead. Yeah, that's it. That's all. I am out. Goodbye.